All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Lunch and Learn live stream. We've taken a little break for a little while. I went and saw some incredible things at the MVP Summit. I can't talk about any of those things whatsoever, but I got to see or meet, in theory, at least be in the same room as our guest today, Emily. Emily, you want to introduce yourself? Welcome.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Emily. I'm a senior product manager on the Power BI team at Microsoft, and I've been on the team for a little bit less than a year now, and I'm focused on a lot of different modeling type capabilities, specifically with driving parity in our modeling capabilities across Power BI surface areas, which is kind of the topic we'll be talking about today with bringing data model editing to Power BI Web.
Wow. Wow. Oh, goody. The sound is very low. Fantastic. Let's see if we can kick that up a notch. Emily sounds good. Let's see. And frankly, where's my properties? Well, that's not gonna do it. Advanced audio. Let's see if we can pump this up. That's not doing it. Oh, oh, I'm louder now. Okay, great. And thank you everyone in the chat for your help. Uh, well, let me see if I can even get a little closer in. We'll do something a little different here. We'll get that right in there for this conversation. Hopefully that'll help out. Um, so we are. I'm excited to have you here, Emily, because this is an exciting topic that you've just been with the Power BI team for a little over or around a year. You said yes.
Yeah, right around a year. I think I'm coming up on my 1 year in about a month from now.
Oh, that is so exciting. Welcome to the Power BI family. Where were you before Power BI?
Yeah, I was in the Azure SQL database team before, so similar, but slightly different community.
Oh, well, so that's where we all got our roots is on the Power BI side, but it or in SQL. So it's exciting to like have you come along and work there. I would imagine that the people on the SQL side were not nearly as passionate as the people that we're seeing on the Power BI side.
There's less gifts in social media posts that I saw. They're passionate, but in different ways. But it's been so exciting, especially with this release, seeing the level of enthusiasm from the community. It's been so energizing seeing all like the gifts, all of the posts, people excited, saying really funny comments. Like it's been a blast. I've loved it.
Oh, that is fantastic. Um, we're excited to have you here because uh, you probably don't know this, but Power BI has been out for actually it's been in beta. I mean, a decade ago is when it really kicked off, and it's been very exciting getting started in Excel and then coming into the Power BI desktop, and we're excited to see it all over the place. But a big challenge has been for a long time, like, hey, I work on a Mac. How am I going to even engage and start to model with the solution? And up until now, there's just been kind of like the only answer was, uh, you know, install a VM and go in there. So really excited that we now can say, okay, hey, you can start here. We can move on to something else. And super excited about that. But we're not just here for me and you to have a conversation. We're here to connect with everyone who's in the chat here. So, Belinda, Alan, Greg, Donald, everyone who's joining us live and listening, if you have questions for Emily about this incredible new feature, uh, post those into the chat. Preface it with a Q. We're going to follow that as a standard, right? Q colon, and then your question, and then we will ask that of Emily. All right? So, um, if you're in the chat, why don't you tell us where are you from? Are you from Seattle? Do you have a chance of running into Emily in the halls of Microsoft, or like I apparently did, or where do you come from, right? So Emily, why don't you? Where are you? You're in Seattle, yes?
Yeah, right now I'm actually in Microsoft offices right now. I'm in Redmond on the Microsoft campus. I typically live in Seattle, but I commuted to work today. But yeah, that's where I'm in one of our offices in the Microsoft campus currently.
Oh, that is fantastic. I understand we had lunch in the same room a week or two ago. Yes. Did I
Yeah, we
actually
did.
did we actually meet and I don't remember this or no? Was yeah
We
we
briefly met. Yeah, we very briefly met. You were done with lunch by that point. I showed up and I was like, "Hi, I'm Emily," and that
oh
was
my
pretty much
gosh.
it. So it's fair that you don't remember, but I remember you. You're kind of a big deal. So yeah,
All right. Well,
but
well, that's exciting. I was really excited for the first time to be on Microsoft campus. I can't believe how big it is. Like it's really big, and you have a lot of construction going on there. And I'm no longer going to believe someone when they say, "Oh, you don't need a shuttle. It's just around the corner." Just around the corner is a 25-minute walk. You're like you call a shuttle for a 25-minute walk in Wisconsin. I don't know. I don't know about there, but that's we're excited to have you. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could even pan my camera and show you exactly what you're talking about. There's construction right out the window of the office I'm currently in. So yep, lots of construction happening. That also means lots of exciting things are happening, new buildings coming up. So yeah, it's a good place to be on Microsoft's campus.
oh, that's awesome. And you're in building 37. And can you just, I had this question that no one seemed to answer. None of the buildings seem like they're all that tall. They all seem like they're 4 or 5 stories. None of them really broke the tree line. Is that, I presume that's on purpose? Is there some guiding principle that I talk about why they have 37, 40 plus buildings versus just, one or two very large buildings?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the
Okay.
background. I'm tempted to make up something, but I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I
Zoning
think that is true.
regulations in Washington require it to be short.
Yeah, but it is nice because then you have like a bit of a campus feel where you can walk between different buildings, lots of green space. So it is nice because it creates its own like little bubble in Redmond. So I like the building setups, but that is true. I never really thought about that, that none of the buildings are really higher than about 5 stories.
Yeah, like, oh, I gotta go to this meeting. Oh, it's in another building. Oh, I gotta catch a shuttle. Oh, like, holy cow! Like, hop on an elevator, go up 30, 50 floors, something. But that's off topic here. All right, so I was just excited. Getting to see like the mothership for the first time was really fun, and so thank you, and everyone at Microsoft who made that such a pleasurable experience. So, all right, well, let's the reason why we're all here is to dig into the Dow modeling experience. But before we do this, no, this is our lunch and learn. Like everyone here should be eating something. So let's make sure that like we welcome everyone to get in and let's grab a beverage and let's take a sip and then we'll dive into that technology training, right? All right, let's get to it. So, you're in charge of modeling. Big new feature is modeling in the web. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few other PMs that also work in the modeling space, but that is the space I work in. And yes, I'm the product manager for modeling in the web, our exciting new capability that just released.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And can you tell us how this came about? I know we've been pressing for this for a long time. We saw this in data marts. Is this the same thing? Is it just okay? The data mart experience over here. What are we seeing here?
Yeah, so what you're seeing is kind of a first step of us bringing all of those modeling capabilities that you might be familiar with in the model view and desktop to the service as well. It's not everything, it's limited just to editing existing data sets right now. But what you're seeing is a first step of bringing that experience to the web, which you might be familiar with in data marts as well. The underlying infrastructure there is the same as what we're using, but now instead of it just being for data marts or just being a desktop, you also can edit your data models for your existing standalone type Power BI data sets directly in the service.
Oh, that is absolutely fantastic. Um, how does that work when it comes to like working with like multiple developers. If me and you are sitting here, we're both working on the sales model. Am I able to go in at the same time as you? What happens there? Is a lock created? How do we prevent like me overriding what you've done, you overriding what I've done, vice versa?
Yeah, which that is a really good question. And if you're familiar with the data marts experience at all, the experience in terms of multiple authors collaborating at the same time is going to look the same in editing your data models in the service as well. So this is really what we are offering as a first step towards a multi-author, like co-authoring type situation where multiple users can have open the same data model at the same time and make changes. However, if one user makes a change, the other users will need to have their models refreshed to see this change before making any further changes. So you'll get prompted a dialog that says, if you're out of sync, saying you're out of sync, we're refreshing, and then you can make more changes.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Um, and that works. I was worried that we're going to see a difference between the two, and to me that makes sense. That like, okay, I've got cache version of the model. Model change happens. You let us know on that. That jives. I don't have to worry about losing anything, do I?
Like losing any changes due to merge conflict, or what
Right.
exactly?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
like let's leave merge conflict off the table. But let's say I'm creating some measures, right? I've created a bunch of measures, and then someone comes along and makes a change, and I see I'm going to have to reload that. Everything just saved, right? Like I don't have to worry that the measures I created are going to be gone, do I?
Yeah, so the experience is autosave, so you don't have to worry about losing any changes in the sense that all of your changes are automatically saved. Um, Really, the one case that would happen is if you're making a change and then you have to refresh, and then maybe that one measure you were typing up, you might have to re-input after your model was synced with remote changes. But like everything is auto saved. You really don't have to worry about losing your progress because all the
Mm.
changes you're making will be automatically saved.
Oh, that is fantastic. I love this. So, um, you know, if someone were to like want to get started with this, is this something that we have to turn on? Is it something that you can just use? How do people get started using the new modeling experience in the web?
Yeah, great question. So right now we do require that you turn on a preview feature switch at the workspace level for any collaborative type workspaces that you want to test this experience in. It is on by default for my workspace. So if you want to just test it in your my workspace, you could just open the data model and test there. But for a collaborative one, you need to go into your workspace settings. And then there's a feature switch called like data model editing in the service, and you have to enable that. And once it's enabled, all contributors to that workspace can open and edit the data models in the web contained within that workspace.
What? I've not seen that feature at the workspace level.
That's only for collaborative workspaces. Yeah, if it just because with the multiple author situation, we wanted to make sure that users are aware this is a preview before opening up the entire workspace for testing. But at the My Workspace level, you can just go ahead and test it.
Oh, there it is. Data model settings. You can update it in the web. That's incredible. Awesome. Well, I understand. We've been doing some talking here, like at a high level. Did you want to show us how this stuff works?
Yeah, why don't we take a look at what the experience actually looks like?
Fantastic. All right, I'm sharing your screen, and okay, so we are now over to Power BI Desktop, right? We're seeing Power BI Desktop here.
You would think so because it looks just like desktop, but no, we are in the web. We are on the Power BI service. This is the data model view within Power BI service. We're not in desktop at all right now.
Shut the front door. Look
Yeah.
at that. Look, it's the same thing.
It's mostly the same thing. Do keep in mind that it's not everything that's currently supported in desktop today. Please stay tuned because we plan to regularly add more and more capabilities to this experience. But yeah, the look and feel should be really similar to what you're used to with using the model view in desktop.
Okay, so I've got questions here. As I'm looking at this, th- to me, it feels like everything is here that I would see in desktop. What's the what are some of the things uh, that people are saying they're missing, or what would be the gotcha that'd be like, oh, Emily didn't say this isn't here. What like, what am I gonna gripe about? What's the like missing thing?
Yeah, so we do have a long list of limitations that is in our documentation. So I would recommend looking at the full list there.
Okay, all right, fair
And
enough.
if there's anything that, because different people have different things that speak to them most, and this is what we actually want to get feedback on most
Mm-hmm.
from the community is which limitations are most blocking to you? Like, what do you miss that's not
Mm-hmm.
there the most right now? So please send us that feedback. I am actively looking at like comments on the blog, comments in the feedback forum. So please send over your feedback on what you missed the most here. I could call out a few that are top of mind though. So the number one thing to be aware of is right now it's just editing your existing data sets. You cannot create new data sets in the
Mm,
web in this experience. You can't add more data sources and you can't do any of those transform data type capabilities that you might be familiar with using like the Power Query experience in model view and desktop. So that's kind of the biggest
mm.
area of limitations right now. We're really supporting editing your existing data sets through some core functionality like creating and managing relationships, writing and editing DAX, editing data properties in RLS.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because if this is, and you correct me if I'm wrong in any of these assumptions, Emily. So this is the same model editing capabilities as data marts, correct?
I would say it's very similar. The
Okay.
experience you're familiar with in data marts, it's not exactly the same, but it's going to be very, very similar to what you're probably familiar with in data marts.
Mm, okay. So where I was going was, uh, to me, if I want to be creating and managing a data set in the web, I would start in a data mart, right? I'd start with data flows, so I'd have granular level control of the Power Query that I'm writing. I'd then bring those uh, data flows into my data mart, so I could do my data validations, I could manage my data, and then I'd create a data set off of the content that's inside my data mart, so I could manage that data set separately and in this editing experience. But you're saying that I would still have to start in desktop to add the sources in to that experience. Is that right?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, so you can edit your existing data sets however you choose to create those data sets, whether it be through
Okay.
desktop or from like uploading like a blank table or Excel file in the service and going that route. But you do have to have an existing data set. We don't have like the full get data flow that you might be familiar with
Okay.
in desktop today. Like we don't have that experience. We don't have the transform data. You can't add additional sources here right now. You do just have to have an existing data set. But once you have the existing data set, likely through creating a data set in desktop and publishing to the service, then you can edit that existing data set in this experience.
I gotcha. 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 Okay. Sorry. I'm just. This is so exciting. I'm trying to think through the different use cases here and how people could use it. What are some of the notes that people are saying on your side?
Yeah, I think the two things that I mean I've been most excited about and I've seen a lot of excitement on in the community is one which you hit on earlier is now Mac users can edit their data models in a way easier way than before. So
Okay.
previously you would have to kind of like what you're talking about, like run parallels, partition your hard drive, spin up a VM, like all of these really complex ways just to make even small formatting changes. None of that is needed anymore. Now, Mac users or anyone who wants to edit in a browser instead of desktop can do these basic data model editing capabilities all within the web, not having to go through the whole download, republish type workflow.
That's awesome. So, if I edit a data model in the web, can I still download it?
Yes, you can still download the PBIX and then you'll see all of the changes in desktop that you made in the web. So all of them that you save in the web that are automatically saved, once you download, you can see it in desktop, you can make further changes and republish to the service.
Well, that's fantastic. And so if I have a model that I use in my development environment and I make all my changes there, like, and I use deployment pipelines to move that model up through the layers. Am I good if I do something to change the model? Is that pipeline going to break? Will I not be able to use those pipelines anymore, or is there like I presume those changes would move up? Yes.
So, okay, one thing to be aware of, which I really encourage everyone to read our limitations, we actually don't support editing data models in the web for data sets that are part of a deployment pipeline. That is one of our limitations.
Okay.
So, something to be, if you're familiar with the restrictions of when you can't download a PBIX, that list is going to look really similar to when you can't open the data model in the web. I know that things like source control are very much top of mind of users. This is one thing that we've been getting really rich feedback on so far.
Mm-hmm.
So things like kind of source control and lifecycle management is something very top of mind for anyone on the call. Please continue to give us feedback on this. This is something we're really investigating in right now, trying to make sure that we satisfy all of your needs because we know this is a very, very powerful capability that we're introducing. We want to make sure all of that, your needs for lifecycle management, is properly met with this type of experience.
Well, that's fantastic because, frankly, while I appreciate the pipeline functionality and I've been a big proponent of it in many cases, I think there's a ton of places where I really prefer, especially at an enterprise level, a much more integrated Git experience so that people could continue to work inside the service, but then we could have processes that run and use AP. My thought was we get processes that run and use the APIs that would download the data set and then redo deployments in other places. And the more tightly we can integrate Git, I think the better. So, but that would be my piece of feedback on this space because I honestly, I really want to, you know, extend the use of be able to edit data sets out to my Mac users without having to have them have those VMs, right? But I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
abandon that source control.
Yeah, absolutely. And like hearing feedback like what you just said, that's exactly what we want to hear. We want to make sure we're like really meeting the needs of all the different types of users who want this kind of like lifecycle management, want to make sure that all the different people who are collaborating with them on the same data set do so with success. So love to hear this kind of feedback. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. You kind of mentioned this before about how you watch the forums when there is feedback. That's how you develop at Microsoft, right? That's how all the Power BI product is developed, right? You get a minimum viable product out there that's going to work and provide functionality and meet needs of people. But then you look for like what are the biggest things that people need that they're missing. Then you work on those things next. Uh, can you say that we have commitment from leadership to continue to enhance this process? Is that something that you've heard? Is that do we need to work on that? Do we have to be on the phone with our with the other leaders at Microsoft? Like, make sure Emily Lisa has the funding to get on this.
Yeah, I mean, we are planning to regularly release more and more capabilities to this experience. We do plan to fund this, keep improving it. So that is the plan. It never hurts to have more usage, have more users continuing to say, like, we love this, here's what we want improved. We plan to use this if this is improved. So all that feedback is really useful. But we do plan, like, this is something we are actively investing in. We plan to have regular updates to this. So please stay tuned, keep looking at the monthly blog updates for any new announcements we have on enhancements, removing limitations, anything new with this experience, because we are actively investing in it.
Oh, that is fantastic to hear, right? Just absolutely love it. Oh, and look at everyone is so excited about all the stuff you got going on here. We got Greg, we got Belinda. Oh, Emily, have you met Belinda Allen?
I think we briefly met before. I don't know in person, but at least virtually. I know of Belinda at least.
Well, we've got to get you connected with Belinda. Belinda is a very special person. Just She brings a ray of joy into everyone's life that she meets. So, got to get you connected with her. This is fantastic. All right. So, I like this. Can you show me making a change? What that does? How we can do that? Can we get into that?
Yeah, let's take a look at what this actually looks like instead of just looking at the model view screen. Like I love looking at just the screen, but I'm sure people are antsy to see some changes.
Yes.
So
Let's do it.
cool. So one thing I just wanted to show, because I know a lot of users are often toggle between having the model view and the report view up. I
Mm.
wanted to show that right now I actually, in a separate tab, have a downstream report that's connected to this data model open. So one thing kind of cool about this and being in the web is you can easily like click between tabs, or even for your multi-screen type users, you can have on two different screens. You can have your model in one, your report in other, look at them side by side when you're making changes, which is one thing I at least really like about being able to edit data models in the web.
Shut the front door. That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
fantastic. Holy
Yeah.
cow. I got buttons for
Which,
that. Oh, I love that. Now we can be modeling in one place and editing in another. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just keep going. This is fantastic.
yeah, so everyone who loves split screen, having multiple monitors, looking at two things at the same time, I'm a huge fan of doing that. I know a lot of you are as well. Like this is a way that you can do that. But for the purpose of just like screen sharing in this demo, I'm going to go between tabs just because it's hard to do multiple screens in a demo.
Yeah.
But just wanted to call out that's something that I at least am really excited about with this capability.
Oh, have I told you lately how much I love this?
Yeah, but here I am. So if you're editing your report, what's really nice about kind of tabbing between them is you can notice issues in your report and make those changes directly in the web without having to do that whole process we were talking about earlier, where you have to like download the PBIX, launch desktop, make your change, save, republish, that whole long flow for small changes. That's not needed anymore. Instead, you can look at your report like here, notice things are off, and just make your changes in the model directly in the web. So for example, here, I don't know if you noticed, but my sales are the exact same for every single date. That's kind of weird, right? In this
Looks like you're
visual.
missing a join. Are you missing a
Yeah,
join?
that was my suspicion as well. I think I'm missing a relationship.
Hmm.
And if I go back over to the model view, that's correct. There's not a relationship that exists between order data and date tables. So I can just, like you're familiar with in desktop, drag and drop the corresponding columns between these tables. And you'll see this create relationship dialog where I can change all the different properties for my relationship, specify this to be how I want, and then select confirm.
Now, before you flip back and we see the magic that has occurred, in data marts, there's an issue where if you went from the dimension to the fact, it would error out and you'd lose, like, you'd have to reopen everything. Has that been fixed? Can you go both, can you drag or drop both ways, or is that still an issue?
Yeah, so I believe that is still an issue
Okay.
today. This is something we're very aware on,
All right.
and we're working to fix that. We're working the experience you're familiar with in desktop, where you could drag between the two, and relationship validation kind of takes place in a very helpful and logical way. We're looking to bring that to the web. I don't think it's ready quite yet, but it is something that we are actively working on. So it should land in the relatively near future. We are aware of this issue and we are working on it.
Fantastic. So, for like future reference, this is May 3rd, 2023. It does not work today, but at some point in time in the future. So if you're watching this in August of 2023 and it works, like leave a comment down below and let us know like, hey, it's working, right?
Keep us accountable, or keep posting in the forum if it's
Right,
not working and you
right,
need it
right,
to.
right. And I'm gonna be keeping you honest too, because that was something that I caught. But it's good to know what, if something doesn't work the way you necessarily expect it. Like, hey, if you're working in this, go from the fact to the dimension, and you're gonna be a okay. All right.
Yes, yeah, go back to dimension.
Yep.
So, but yeah, now as you saw how it was created,
Yep.
it's there, somewhat how it looks in desktop. You can even right click and delete or go back and change the properties even more if you feel like you didn't set them properly.
Awesome. And so if we go to the report, is it working now?
So you need to do a refresh to see the changes. But
Okay.
after you refresh, there you have it. It works. The data is actually different for each of the dates as you'd expect. So there you saw it all within the web, created a relationship, quick refresh in the report view. You see the changes reflect very fast after doing the refresh.
Holy cow, that was really fast. That was I was kind of looking at your screen to see if you're showing me like a PowerPoint like PM where cuz that was almost too fast, right? That was fantastic.
Yeah, that's the power of doing the autosave and then being able to just instantly see those changes afterwards in the report. So really exciting capability. It is not PM art. It's not a PM mockup. This is Power BI service I'm showing right now.
Holy cow, well done. Well done. Now, and I can add measures. I could do other things as well. Like, let's say I want to add a column or something like that. That's possible too now.
Yeah, so you can add your measures, calculated columns, calculated tables. You can edit existing DAX for all of those. Let's do an example of a measure to show this. So let's
Sure.
do over here, I have like a lot of different kind of measures that are showing. One thing that would be interesting is maybe seeing the number of canceled sales for
Mm,
my sales forecast analysis. So let's take a look at adding that to my report by switching over to the model view. Um, and then here I will pick the table that I want to put this new measure in. And then what you see in the ribbon, in the home ribbon, there's new measure, new column, new table, similar to what you're probably familiar with in desktop. And if I select new measure, you'll see the whole DAX formula bar experience that you're probably familiar with. And then I can just type out the DAX for this new measure, and you'll see IntelliSense actually pops up, and you get that full IntelliSense experience to help you create this measure, which I'm a big fan of IntelliSense. I find it really helpful. It saves me a lot of time. So I use it every time I'm writing an EDAX.
heck yeah. I know two guys who might write decks without it. They write books. They live in Italy. Everyone else use IntelliSense, right?
Yeah. But there you saw it. The DAX formula bar appeared. IntelliSense helped me along the way. And now I was able to make this new measure. You see it in the data pane over here, my canceled sales measure that I just created. If I go back to my report and then select refresh, you'll be able to see it right here. You see the canceled sales measure. And then if I go and create a new card to see what this value looks like, there you have it. There's the value for my canceled sales.
Wow.
I wrote the DAX in the web, and then I'm able to just test it by hopping over to a downstream report,
Wow.
selecting refresh, and testing it out there.
Mm, that is fantastic. That is
Yeah.
great. Uh, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of looking at this whole thing, uh, and thinking, inside a desktop, there's a number of different like tools for like auto DAX measures and that type of thing. Do we have any of that as of yet, or is that still something that's a work in progress?
Yeah, so a lot of those capabilities are still a work in progress, especially things like auto detecting relationships, or if you're talking about like quick measure to be
Mm-hmm.
able to use the quick measure experience, that's not yet here. Like I can show, like we don't have like the button there for that yet.
Okay.
But in terms of just writing DAX using the formula bar, that is all supported. Like if you're any DAX formula bar writing experience, we have that. But some of the auto or like helping out type capabilities, we still do not have directly in the service experience.
So this is fantastic. I'm loving this. Are we gonna? When are we gonna see Like I just saw an announcement that Microsoft has made a commitment to Copilot in everything. When are we going to have Copilot in this? Because
You're asking all the good questions.
they said it was going to be in everything. So why, like, where when is it in everything?
Yeah, well, would actually like to spin this back to everyone on the call and say if we were to introduce a co-pilot type experience to modeling in the web or just modeling in general, what would be most helpful? What would you want to see in that co-piloting type experience? That is something I would actually love to get feedback on. So, people on the call, please send me that feedback.
We're gonna do we're gonna do something in the chat. Uh, I think there's two areas of potential for Copilot, and I think it's either on the model, either in M, or in the DAX and the analytics. So, if you would rather see a Copilot for the model, put M inside the chat. If you would like to see a Copilot on the DAX, put a D inside the chat so we can start to gather and understand what would be most useful for this audience, these thousands, I mean, handful of people that have joined this live stream. Um, I'm gonna give you there's a little bit of a delay between me talking and people being able to respond. So I'm gonna pause before I tell you what I want to have, but I'm gonna give you. I've thought about this quite a bit, and I think this is very important to start with. And I'm going to say that anyone who disagrees is wrong. Um, and
Wow, the suspense. I'm
yeah,
really excited to see.
and not only is everyone who disagrees wrong, but I happen to know that the product team at Microsoft is wrong on their first version of Copilot. So let's see. You can't do both. You can't have both. One has to be first, right? Like, so which one comes first? Is it M or is it Dex? And oh, look at that, Power BI guy. What's up, Ben? How you doing? Oh.
I got Ethernet today.
uh, all right. So I have horrible news for you. Well, Ben, you're in good company. Everyone at Microsoft and the product team completely and totally agrees with you that DAX should be the first place that Copilot should be introduced. You're all wrong. It's the first place Copilot should be introduced is on the modeling side. Um, it it that having a bad model leads to having to create bad DAX, and your bad model could create for infinite variations of what needs to be written inside of DAX. So the best place to start would be to have Copilot to help people in building and managing good models, and then from there have Copilot for creating better and suitable DAX. So you could say you start on the DAX side, but then, like, if the model's garbage, like how is Copilot going to figure out that your model is garbage in 15 different ways? And I don't see that as like this is the right solution. That's my thought. And I happen to know I'm right. So everyone who said model is 100% correct, and you get 10,000 Data God bonus points today on the live stream. Well done. Everyone else, you lose 5 Data God points. So, terribly sorry for everyone who said D for Dax. That's right.
But so, I mean, this is really interesting to hear. Not committing to anything with Copilot, but everyone who did say on the chat, if you also want to type, what would be the most helpful thing for like a Copilot type experience to help you with your modeling, or what kind of pitfalls you've seen, especially new users enter when they're trying to make a good data model? Feel free to include that on the chat as well. I would love to see all of your opinions on this topic.
Yeah. Yeah, and getting into that would be
Like, you bring up an interesting. I'm curious to learn. That's why we do these community engagements, is to get this rich feedback.
100%. Yeah, Kevin, you're supposed to be keeping score on all of this stuff. Just let me know. Um, uh, uh, Boy, we've strayed away from from my entire train of thought, but that's okay. Like this is a great conversation. Because you had something on your screen and there that I want to go back to and say, wait, what? Um, you have new table. I thought we couldn't add tables in this experience. Are you letting slip something that doesn't exist in the service? Is this a preview? What is that?
This is available for everyone. It's a calculated table. So you can't add in like a new Excel source, you can't add in new SQL sources, but you can write a DAX calculated table. So all that DAX formula bar stuff I talked about, writing the measures, the calculated columns, calculated tables, editing those, that's supported. This new table button will just take you to the experience of creating a new calculated table.
Ah, fantastic. So, let's say I wanted to use my good old fashioned uh, calculated date dimension that I wrote in DAX. I could still do that. I could just bring that in and use that inside of here. Is that correct?
Yep, if you wrote DAX in desktop and you publish it and you want to edit it, you want to see it here, that's supported.
Okay, fantastic. All right, good deal. Good deal. That's exciting. Because I mean, how many data models do you get into that don't have a date dimension, and you struggle without that to deliver on some functionality? That's fantastic, awesome. And then you say you can add new columns. Is that what's the extent of that?
Yeah, so that's the same as the calculated column experience that exists in desktop, where you can write DAX to create a calculated column. So say you want to like write a new column that combines strings from two other columns in your table, like those kind of scenarios where we see users want to use DAX to create a net new calculated column within their table. We support that full experience within the web.
I think that experience should be deprecated. I'm not
Yeah, would
kidding.
you, you know, like we've heard this. Yeah.
I think we should eliminate creation of columns with DAX. I think that's legacy stuff should not be continued. But
Mhm. So you think it
once
should happen earlier in the pipeline, like in like kind of more the data prep stage or like within Power Query? Is that kind of where you see the better
100%,
place? Yeah.
yeah, all of that should that's all functionality that should be exist inside of Power Query should be upstream, right? Like Roach's principle is a thing, right? Here. Oh, my camera doesn't work when I do that. That's awesome. All right. Well, I got a screen that shows Roach's principle. As far upstream as possible, as far downstream as necessary. I know DAX columns can have some real negative performance impacts on people's systems, so um, I'm pro deprecation of that. I don't see anyone disagreeing with me in chat, so I'm going to take that as absolute and total agreement with me that we should just omit DAX created columns inside the service. So you now have that feedback, and it's universal. Everyone agrees.
Everyone, at least in chat so far. So I'll keep monitoring it. I mean, this is why we do these things, is to get this rich feedback that you just don't want this anywhere. So
Just eliminate it.
cool. I can so I know we haven't also showed I think we showed the most exciting parts of the capability, but I just want to call out, just because we haven't talked about it, that the properties pane, being able to edit different properties of your data fields, so things like your description, your display folder, like all these formatting capabilities, that's something else that we support for all of your data fields, so your tables, your measures, your columns, your hierarchies, like all of this that you're used to editing properties for in the Malvian desktop. The majority of those properties we also support today. There's a few exceptions, but majority of those properties we support editing in the service as well.
Oh, this is fantastic. So, uh, let's say I have this model out there, right? I'm in a Mac. I'm using this model editor, and I'm working with it along those lines. And it's a data set that's in a premium workspace, either premium capacity or premium per user. Can someone with tabular editor be in and make a change to that and deploy that will I just get a notification about that?
So this is one of our limitations, going back to the long list of
Okay.
limitations we have right now. Any changes that have been, like any data set that's been modified using XMLA endpoints, so whether that's through tabular editor or whatever tooling you prefer to use that would change a data set using XMLA endpoint, that is not supported for opening your data model in the web. That's one of our limitations today, kind of similar to what you might be familiar with if you tried to download PBIX for those types of data sets as well. We also have a limitation for that with opening the data set in the web. So sorry if you're a big Tiger Editor fan, that is one of our limitations right now.
All right, fair enough. And apparently, people still can't hear me, but that's okay. They can hear you. That's the primary important piece. All right. Now, okay, so we can add joins, right? We can add measures. We can add columns. We can create a DAX table, right? We can update the metadata, right? So we can change uh, the names, the descriptions, all that good stuff. Um, can we change our security roles? Can we define our security roles inside of this experience, or is that something that we have to do in desktop?
Yeah, that can all be done in the data model editing and the service experience. If you go to manage roles, you can create and assign security roles all within the web. And so I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the enhanced RLS editor that we added as a preview in desktop. But what you see here is really, it's that same kind of look as the enhanced RLS editor as well, where you select your roles, you can select your tables, and then you have a drop down experience to help you define what you want to filter your data by for those roles. But if you don't like using the drop down experience, or you want to write something that can only be written in DAX, you can switch to the DAX editor and choose to write in DAX instead.
Well, that is fantastic. I absolutely really love this. I'm posting. I actually, when this released, I did a video that same day on it because I dropped what I was doing because I love how easy it now is for people to create row level security on stuff and test that out. So really excited about that. This I think is a huge step forward. So that's awesome to see that that's now possible inside this experience. So for those of
Yeah,
you on Mac, now you can start doing row level security too. So that's awesome.
yeah, thank you. And we actually saw the video that was shared in the team that worked on the enhanced RLS editor, and they were so thrilled to see that. So big fan of the video.
Oh,
And any feedback people have on enhanced RLS editor, please also continue to send that our way. This is something we are investing in both in desktop and, as you see, in the web as well.
all right. So that brings me to a number one challenge question for you that I'm going to lean in so that everybody can hopefully hear me. Uh, when are we going to see perspectives brought to Power BI as first class citizens inside the web and inside of data models?
Yeah, which that is a great question. The best person to speak to those kind of like pro user scenarios, I would recommend if you haven't met her, reach out to Zoe. She would be a great person to talk to about this. But we are looking to
Zoe
bring
who?
things. Zoe Douglas. Have you not met
Zoe
her?
Douglas? I'm coming for you, Zoe Douglas.
But yeah, we have a team at Microsoft looking at these kind of pro scenarios, these things that exist in other tooling, like bringing them directly into Power BI. Not going to give any dates, not going to commit to anything, but would say that there are people looking at this. And when we bring things to desktop, our plan is to bring them to the web as well. Our goal is parity between these experiences. So if something like perspectives were to be added, our goal would be to bring it not only to desktop but to the web as well.
Well, that's fantastic because for those of you who follow my channel, keep an eye out for the Perspective Ninja, who's going to be showing you all these amazing things you can do with perspectives that no one has any idea is entirely possible with. That's 100% possible, and we've just been dropping the ball on it. And we gotta up our game on the whole on that whole side of things because we're missing out. It's it's a challenge because there's so much we can do inside of Power BI with perspectives, right? Like you could create mini models, you could create separate data sets that allow for people to have different experiences when consuming it. I just there's so much there that I'm excited to showcase that with people and
Yeah.
try to get more people adopted and ready for it and using that feature because I know the feature means a lot to you. If people aren't using it, they won't you won't invest in it, right? So
Yeah, exactly. So hearing this feedback is helpful. I can forward it over to the team that's a bit more focused on these types of scenarios. But yeah, I'm not committing to anything, but it is something that we have heard feedback on. So keep sending any feedback on these type of things.
So you broke up there. I believe you said you're committing to this and that we can expect to see updates. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, internet connection. Cutting out perfect timing.
Okay. This is absolutely fantastic. Can we talk about what's next? What do you see coming next to modeling that we should be excited about?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we are actively investing in improvements in this space. So please keep checking our monthly blog updates for Power BI to see any exciting updates that we bring to this experience specifically. The things that I would say to look out for is us just bringing more of those capabilities that exist in desktop to the service. So long term, we want the parity and modeling capabilities in both places. So just over time, we'll be adding more and more of those experiences to the web, and also working to remove limitations. So those are really the top two just bucketed areas in how we prioritize what to bring in next, what limitations to remove next, what additional experiences that you think are needed for a web experience versus a desktop experience. That's all things that choosing what to prioritize is going to be really feedback driven. So I know I keep saying it, but I'm going to say it again. Continue to give us feedback in our feedback forums, in our blogs, because we are listening and we are using that feedback to help us prioritize what pieces of this really big puzzle we want to tackle next.
Well, that's great, right? Like we love that you work on this in a regular cadence and that you have updates. Um, Now I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong. Power BI service updates as often as 3 times a week, with potentially with the usual cadence of 2 times, but 1 time a week if there's an issue, or an additional time if there's a like an issue that has to get out. So does that mean we could see these changes coming in at any point in time in the future?
Yeah, so Power BI service, the updates happen more regularly than in desktop, like what you were saying. So once a fix is in place and once we feel comfortable shipping something new, we're going to ship it. So yeah, if you just continually use this experience, you might notice some like limitations might be removed or there might be new functionality. So keep trying it out. When something's ready, we're going to ship it. But the place that you'll see an official announcement will be the monthly blog post for Power BI All Up.
So that is something that I am just constantly amazed at what you're able to deliver through. I mean, honestly, I would love to someday, in an NDA, like closed door, like black box, put a bag over my head, take me to some like remote location, and show me your DevOps and CI/CD pipelines that you have. I just cannot imagine how you manage to do those deployments on that type of a schedule with this type of a user base. How many models do you have in Power BI right now?
I don't know if I could give an exact number, but there's
Okay,
many. There's a lot of models in Power BI, which
right.
is exciting. We love seeing such high usage of modeling, and we hope that even more of you are not only just having them in Power BI, both in desktop and service, but editing and making changes and making reports off of these models as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then I think this might be my last question. So when is this coming to Power Query and Excel?
So, so that's something that we're investigating and looking into is Excel, but Yeah, just hitting with the, really easy one for the last question. But, can't commit to anything with Excel. Yeah.
I I laugh, but one of the biggest things that makes it so powerful is this is an integrated ecosystem where like all this functionality comes in, it all interacts, it's all running off the same engine. So that has to also be a huge challenge for you, right? Like how do you determine cuz like okay, you're going to have parity to this world. Well, I mean, you're how many days from since you launched preview?
It's
14?
been, yeah, close to that. We announced it on the 20th. So it has been a little, like 1 day less than 2 weeks. So 13
Okay.
days.
So 13 days, right? We're not at 14 days. 14 was too generous in your release. And the tabular environment has been out for 12 years. That's a lot for you to get caught up on, right? So to get to parity is not an insignificant ask.
No.
Yeah, so clearly you're going to have to do this in bits and pieces, and that's why you're repeatedly saying, "Hey, please provide us that feedback." Go on to is it Yelp.com? Where do people go for tips? I forget. It's not Yelp. It's
It's not Yelp. It's we have both a feedback form and if you comment on the blog post for this announcement. Those are the two best places to give feedback. We check other channels too, but if you really want to get your feedback looked at, I'd post it in one of those two places.
you have a feedback form.
Yeah, a feedback forum. It's in
Oh,
the
forum,
community
forum.
site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right,
I
all right.
I always pronounce that word really similar to form. My bad on that. I'm going to work on pronouncing forum with more emphasis, but it is a feedback forum.
That's totally fine. I don't see bagel right, so I get bagel wrong. So people are really upset that about my pronunciation of bagel. So I think it's bagel. I don't know. Whatever. I know what you're saying. Awesome. Well, we're nearly at time. Emily, with our teeming hordes of fans here online, that I'm great, and we're grateful for each and every one of you for dialing in and tuning in. What last parting words do you have for this group? What do you have to say? What tidbit of knowledge do you have, right? For this
Yeah,
group.
the biggest thing I have to say is thank you, everyone, for both joining the session, giving feedback, trying out this experience, showing us love on social media. All of it is really appreciated. We can't do any of this without the community. So, all of your engagement, please keep doing it. We love it. We appreciate it. And yeah, thank you all for taking the time to listen to us talk about this exciting new capability.
Yeah, and I'm gonna piggyback on that and say thank you all for dialing in. I enjoy this interaction with you guys so very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for like sticking with me even through a couple of breaks there from like going to the MVP summit and like my whole system got blown up, so I had to restore that. And so apologies on the sound as well. But thank you guys all so much. Emily, thank you for joining me. Really appreciate this and uh, please thank all of the people on your engineering team for all of this incredible work that they're doing. I know that there's a ton of guys and gals and people somewhere in a cave that you have them locked up and you've got someone with whips beating them mercilessly day in and day out to deliver these incredible features for us, and they don't see the sun and they don't see how wonderful they make the world for us. But I want them to know that we really appreciate them. We know that they're out there working for us, and thank them as well. Okay.
Yes, will do. Yeah, the team, they're absolute rock stars. They're incredible. So I'll go down to the cave. I'll let them know that you said this. But yeah, they're incredible. This all couldn't have been done without all the amazing engineers on our team. So shout out to all of them.
Awesome. Well, and then one last thing before we go, Zoe Douglas, I'm coming for you. Have a
I'll
good
give
one.
her a heads
Peace,
up.
everybody.
All right.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.